I was in a public or call recording that is going to have segments published publicly, and I actually had a reason to justifiably bring Edvo up during the call and make a demo with it, but I had the red flag in the side, and I tried to hide it. I refreshed, but it showed up again, so it's slightly awkward. But I think I just explained that it's in early access at the moment. In terms of the version, the value proposition of escaping tab hell, what you guys have got is like way beyond mere escaping tab hell. So that's where I wondered where you're going to draw the line of the public version. If that's the initial value proposition, then maybe just tidy it up and just focus the features for V1 on escaping tab hell, and then having all the multi-dimensional portals and everything else as maybe just in the test group.
Yeah, Gabriel, it's exactly the way we're approaching this. Right now we are critically looking at the value proposition and the experience which comes with it, and the goal is to have a stable public version which delivers on that value prop, without bugs, without issues, because we also feel the same pain. When we are demoing the tool, and if a red flag comes up, we're like, oh, damn it, So we know how it feels, from the first person perspective, and we are exactly on the track, to basically have that RC and freeze it and make sure that everyone can use it and benefit from it while we are continuing to build additional features and iterate on it, kind of in a separate version of the app.
Yeah, right now we only have just one public version. We actually do have the structure in our architecture just be able to hide specific things behind feature flags, and that might become an option for just early access people versus just what the public version is. And that could be we could probably throw even just the error flags behind those as well. Right now they're super obnoxious. That's intentional, so that if it's bugging everyone, that means that hey, we gotta fix it. But before we do release the more public version and start opening the gates more, I think we can be super intentional about if getting out of tab hell is the value prop we really want to hit the market with, what that workflow is and what features are included in that. So Alex is really pioneering that for us right now, which is super exciting.
Yep, and sooner or later you will start seeing the first hypothesis and assumptions which comes out of that, and I would love to use the collective minds to help us prove or disprove those hypotheses.
Sounds great. I see Alessandra is all smiles, so it's good.
Yeah. Totally. It seems like we're all craving a more stable version of Edvo.
Yeah. I mean, to reach a larger group that you can test things in is also part of having a stable product you can present to them, even if it isn't fully fledged with all the bells and whistles, so to speak. But if you have a stable version that, let's say, escape tab hell is the point, push it out, because you need to get it out wider, and have the crash tests, and tell people this is an early test product. Don't expect it to be perfect. Report all the things you see. Report the crash report or whatever comes out of this. For us, we need this to build a stable product. I think that's a good point to do, really. So.
And Dar, what I think that says about who Edvo are is that we're the people that build in public.
Yeah.
We're the people that will invite you over for a drink when the house is a mess.
Yep.
because this is all about the people being in a better place, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Alexander, would you mind to expand a little bit on like what building in public means for you, and like what channels would you expect to?
I'll make the example of as a musician, building in public means like that this is a work in progress, that this is practice, not perfect, that this is something that's more, you're getting a little sample, like, how does that taste? You're getting a little sample and you're going to be like, oh my God, the salt. Okay. So, and he's been very helpful to me as my composer to give me things with which I can test the market and, see if that boat floats. And it's just, it's a perfectionistic hell. Okay. Because he writes hard shit.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. But yeah, like it's a thing. The perfectionism, just like I feel like it gets me around the neck and I can't move or think or, or iterate. And I don't know what it is to build what you're building here. I appreciate it, but I can't fully appreciate it. And I don't know at what point you build in public versus, wait till there are fewer red error boxes. I don't know. But I love what it says about who we are.
Yeah, indeed. I think we're on the same page there. Would you mind to expand a little bit more on, like, when somebody is building in public, right? What are the channels would be, best for you to learn about the progress of that front? Is it Discord or it's something else outside of that?
Discord's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that analogy, Alessandro, of music, that it's practice, not perfect. I think that's really dynamic, and that's very helpful for product teams and marketing teams. I love that analogy. I'm stealing that one. Thank you.
Thanks.
Because it allows a level of experimentation, right? You're saying I'm going to practice. I'm going to be playful. That allows me. It allows me to explore a little bit beyond the edges, so that when I do come back and need to be perfect because it's a real live audience or whatever, then I've got that, like, that dynamism that I can really find my perfection within. But you're allowing yourself to be playful and creative in the practice in order to get to the perfect. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It's so true. The building in public thing, it's vulnerable. So as a building a product, it's like, how much vulnerability do you take? How much do you stretch? How much do you challenge assumptions? How much do you throw a vibrato in there where there isn't one written?
Yeah, and to be honest, y'all, we are just like building this kind of like building in public habit right now. Like these office hours have kind of been like relaunched in an effort to be able to build more with the community, be more vulnerable. But I think there's also like a lot of more opportunity for us to be doing it in different ways. Like right now we have the office hours and then we record them all and then just like default post them on YouTube. But I think there's more like conversations that we can be sparking, experiments we can be running with the community, especially as Alex and I are really fine-tuning that user experience. And so we welcome any and all ideas. And we are, we're kind of just like learning as we go.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I was in the beta test of Reader from Readwise, I was early in that process, and it was a really vital community that discussed questions. They didn't have office hours per se, but the community was lively and discussions was high. And in the end, they have presented a much better product that we could see almost 2 years ago, when it started. It was a really fun project to be part of, and I'm proud to have been part of that experience. I learned so much from that, and I would love to put my knowledge from that journey into this project. And so I'm just telling you, I have been in kind of a lot of beta processes. Not everybody has gone fully out, but Reader is one of the big projects, really. So
yeah, it'd be fun to pick your brain on what your experience was with that, Andy. To kind of just learn what techniques they used or what spaces they created.
That would be really fun for me also. Although I have to say I have to wait until after my surgery, the 27th of September. I have brain surgery, by the way. So a couple of weeks after that, I will probably be really exhausted from the experience, and emotional and stuff like that. But
100%.
I mean, the vital parts are still there. So if you want something from me, you can send a message on Discord, and I can probably answer. But I will not be present in office hours until it has started to heal.
Of course.
They will exchange this. I have electrodes in my head to control my shakings, and it's called deep brain stimulation. So this electrode.
I thought that was because you had so many ideas, Andy, that there just wasn't room for them all.
Yes. I would like to have, in the next iteration of this, I would like to have an USB port or a Bluetooth connection, so I could download all my thoughts. Yeah. Honestly, it's a really great thing that happened to me. My life quality increased with 1,000%, because I was shaking like hell. I couldn't drink.
Remind us the date, Andy. That's happening?
27th of September.
September 27th. All right, we'll be sending good vibes your way.
Yeah, please do. I mean, it's a relatively normal procedure these days, but I mean, it's brain surgery, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me of, if your surgeon were a redneck from Texas, he might sound a little bit like this. See, what we're going to do is cut the top of your head off. But luckily, you have more well-tempered surgeons there in Stockholm.
Oh, yes.
No cowboys for you.
No. I mean, he's top 7 or 5 in Europe as a neurosurgeon, my surgeon. So.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Gabriel, it looked like you were about to say something.
Yeah, it's a little segue. In terms of pricing, just reflecting on Alex's question, I had a conversation with Charlene, but there's only so much you can fit in a 30-minute conversation, and there's a million opportunities in what you're exploring. I just wondered if you're any closer with pricing model, because you guys may well know the platform of AppSumo, but it's a bit like a product hunt, but AppSumo they promote apps in relatively early stage of development. Not always the case, but usually they've got a specific feature roadmap. They're functional with a feature roadmap that they're still working on to get to a solid MVP. And then they give a massive price discount, and they can get a lot of early users, a flood of early users that way. But it's, I guess it's only relevant if you do have a bit of a handle on pricing, because you need that to be able to give a discount model.
Yeah. So we haven't finalized our pricing model yet, but the direction we're headed is in terms of price based off of storage. And so right now our like beta, we're gauging it's free up to 1 gigabyte. And honestly, like we're kind of using the beta to estimate or to see like how much data is like a power user in Edvo like how much data are they putting into Edvo? And that's something that we want to get a better read on in order to get a better like accurate amount of what each of those things will be. But it will definitely be based off of storage. The amount of storage we're still trying to figure out.
Got you. And then it has to fit in to some extent with relatively similar-ish apps, I guess, right? Okay, got you.
Yep. So what we're seeing is, like if we were to compare what Dropbox's pricing model is, for example, or even like Notion's or paid pricing model or Obsidian's paid pricing model, we're seeing between like 5 to 10 a month. And so, yeah, we will definitely need to do more research there, but I think the storage direction is definitely the way we're going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Though on that front, probably the important caveat would be like competing with the storage-based apps, like the applications for which storage is the main function, right? And kind of like arriving to the same pricing might not be the entire way, right? Because basically, they offer plans like up to, for example, 2 terabytes, right? But it's not necessarily like makes sense to basically go the same route and try to be on par, with them. Because it's one thing, when you have like a Dropbox and you shove like all your stuff into it, versus having something which is much more context based. So I guess being on par like price wise is kind of important, but also we kind of like tackling slightly different use cases here and there. So I think that is going to be like that important caveat in the play when it comes to defining the pricing strategy.
Yeah, I think there's also like the side of like storage based, but like what's that transition? What's like the freemium model? Where is like the user experiencing a lot of that aha and wanting to convert to a paying user? So there's definitely lots of research that we have the opportunity to do, and it'll be a heck of a lot easier when we have more stability and to be able to test that.
Yeah, and I guess to reflect that question, Gabriel and the rest of the group here, like, is there any expectations that you have so far, in terms of like what the pricing model could be, how much it's gonna cost, just like from the top of your head?
I mean, yeah, literally off the top of my head, probably not worth a great deal at this point. But there's frameworks to go and do this analysis. I don't like having lots and lots of subscriptions that like apps on my iPad and Notability, they just transferred over to a payment model. I paid one license fee previously and now they want to start charging monthly. I had that happen with a HD camera app, and like if I don't use them on a regular basis, then I just get rid of it. For something that is core to my productivity, which Edvo should be, it should kind of replace the bookmarking browser tabs at a minimum, if not a second brain functionality, then it's something that I would be happy to pay for on a monthly basis. So it's that maybe is part of the distinction. If users are not going to be using it generally daily, then I feel like a monthly fee is going to feel like, even if it's $3 or $5, it feels like a pain to justify. If they are going to be general daily users, then yeah, I think, like, I don't know what Readwise is. I think it may be, I pay for, like, I've been paying that for a few years. I think it's $7.99 a month or something.
Yeah, yeah.
They added Readwise Reader included in that price, and they said that it would be a grandfathered price. They might put it up to $20 a month, I think they said, for the total package for new customers. So at the end of the day, it's a bit of elasticity of demand, right? You gotta see what the market is willing to pay for your scalability, for the growth rate that you want.
Right.
But so I'd be thinking $3 to $20 might be the kind of range that I would be thinking around.
And it's kind of like dependent on how often you are using the application, right? Absolutely. Like if this is like your daily go-to tool, then the price might be gravitating towards the higher end of the spectrum. If this is like once a few days, once a week, then it's a little lower end of it, right?
Yeah, and it might also be just the different functional, like the feature sets. There might be a few different plans. Give me the basic, the medium, and the advanced plan, whatever you call them.
I've seen that coming more and more in apps. You have a free plan, and you have a more advanced plan, you have a pro plan, and you have a business plan. And then for every step, you get more and more bells and whistles, to say it mildly. Of course, not everybody can pay the business level, but maybe they don't need the full advanced toolkit, to make it work for them. So I think a business model like that could be working for Edvo too.
Just maybe one more. It also might depend on literally the type of target audience you want to go after. If you want to go after people like academic researchers, then you could presumably charge a premium. It's part of it is, I have a model from B2B or background of value-based pricing, right? This is negotiating the size of the value that the user expects to have. So regardless of what it costs to deliver, like how much data storage it is, it's more about how useful they imagine it to be for whatever their project is. So if academic researcher might pay, like at a university, might pay $40 a month or something. Just don't know.
Yeah. Have you seen anyone implementing the value-based pricing like en masse? Because I've seen the successful applications like on like one-to-one sales, when let's say I'm consulting with you, I figure out what is the perceived value that you want to receive from the work that I do, and I base my pricing on that. But when you are working like with the SaaS tool and you expect to sell it to like thousands of people, right? Then implementing value-based pricing becomes quite a challenge. So I wonder if you've seen, the successful applications of that in the past.
Yeah, fantastic question. I guess that comes, if you look at VWO.com, Visual Website Optimizer, I think they've got one of the most interesting pricing calculators, because they split it in different ways. They've literally got different products. So instead of saying we have they're not just features of one product, but they're separate products, and each product you pay per volume pricing as well. So you put together your own bundle. You say, I want these 5 different products, and I want this volume for different products. So it's kind of like value based in the sense that literally they're stacking the functionality that they want. I guess I'm manipulating the concept of value-based pricing a bit there, but that's probably as close to it as I can think of in terms of a SaaS business model.
Yeah, 100%. It kind of like invokes thinking of like tools which allows you to do the cold messaging and load-based tools, you know, for like whatever 1,000 website visitors, there is this price, for 2,000 there is other price, etc. So yeah, it's certainly like moves in that direction, trying to like attune the usage of the tool to the pricing.
Yeah,
and
or
that's
HubSpot is the other one that does that.
Exactly.
A very good job. A very painful job of that. You jump up from like $30 a month to $800 a month.
Dude, yeah, tell me about it. I was trying to use HubSpot for like one of the side things that I'm running, and I accidentally signed like a year-long contract without knowing that.
Ooh.
And it took me a week back and forth with their support team to get rid of that contract. It was just insane. Yeah.
Oh man. Malcolm and Robert, I saw y'all unmuted, so just want to make sure that y'all have the space to jump in if you wanted to.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
You guys are talking about like how you guys are looking to monetize this. I was wondering if you guys are thinking about mobile at all. I feel like I would definitely pay for some type of like mobile application where I can manage my data on the go, but also like capture information and notes on the go, and then like bring those into whatever boards or whatever work I'm doing on desktop. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have thought about that at all.
Oh, we think about it a lot, Malcolm.
Yeah. Biggest question is, how do we make it actually useful instead of just a tinier version of the desktop experience?
Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't try and I wouldn't try and put like the full canvas onto mobile, although like you could try and do that. Like I have like looked at some of like my Figma boards or FigJam boards on mobile, and it's still been helpful just to have that view. But I think something that would be helpful, and something that's like that I've been struggling with Edvo, is just like navigating the space and wanting to have kind of like a sidebar where all of the items that are in the space are maybe listed out, so that basically you have like a set of tabs for everything that is in the space, and you can like easily click some type of list item to navigate directly to whatever that window is, or whatever that file is. And so I was just thinking that the sidebar could translate really nicely to mobile. And then you could use that same UI for both of those contexts.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I'm curious. One of the, so there's two things that I think are wrapped up in that from a UI perspective. One is the sort of desire to search the space, which we're very aware of, the ability to Command F and search items in the space by name. That might be totally unrelated to the list that you're craving, or there may be little elements that are related. I'm not certain. And then there's the question of just like redundancy versus clarity. The clarity of all of the items listed, kind of like in Figma or something like that, where you can see all of the elements and their containment relationships. Versus the screen real estate that takes up, and how do we find a balance? But it sounds like you're craving that explicit list.
Yeah, I guess I'm craving I guess a representation of the data that is more linear, but then also maybe hierarchical in the way that like just a directory is. And so like even though everything is laid out in the spatial arrangement, there is a way to kind of augment the presentation of that data so that it kind of fits with like what we're more accustomed to with like the desktop and the file system. And all of that I think translates nicely onto mobile. So like the application that I'm thinking about right now is just Apple Notes, which is obviously a very simple application. But what I love about Apple Notes is that you can create folders, and in those folders you can create more folders. But you kind of have a space. It's like you kind of have a directory, but then you also have like the resources or items that you're working with. So I think of it in the vein of like activity-based computing, which I feel like not that many people are familiar with it, but essentially you just have, it's kind of like you have a desktop, right? And you have like windows that are arranged in the way that you're kind of arranging stuff on the spatial canvas here. But each of those like desktops also has a dedicated storage space where you have resources that are specific to that activity that you might want to pull in at another time, but you don't need to work on them like presently. So there's this idea of just having like an arrangement of the stuff of the files that you're working with, and then a storage facility for the stuff that you need to work on or to reference later. And so that's where exactly. I look at Edvo kind of I don't know, dipping its toes into. But I think that it would help to allow you guys to translate what you're doing onto a mobile interface.
I want to try to break that down a little bit, if it's okay.
Sure.
Because it's fascinating, and it's something that we've talked about. Like, should we have an actual listing? And I think the concern that I had, and maybe this doesn't make sense. The concern that I had was, if we take that to the nth degree, let's say we have a side panel that shows the contents of the space, for example. If we take that to the nth degree and we start to add some, in addition to listing, there's also some kind of structure, and maybe it's a hierarchical structure or something like that. But at a certain point of, if you extend that to a certain point, it starts to compete with the structure that's in the topic space, compete for your attention, compete for the actual screen space. And it may be that just the linear format in and of itself is one way of orienting and navigating around the space, or it may be that that they're two totally separate contexts and you want to switch between them. And that's, I think, the thing that I'm trying to understand most. But I think the instinct or the craving to have that linear presentation of the contents of a space is totally reasonable. And it's just a question in my mind of making it so that the two are complementary instead of competing.
Yeah, exactly. I think in terms of like the competing screen real estate, I think that can be just solved by having the sidebar be something that can be hidden. But then I guess how I kind of envision it is that you might have like resources or like files that are related to a specific topic area, so specific canvas that you have, that aren't necessarily on the canvas, but you might want to be able to pull in other resources. I guess you have that with search, but I don't know. I just kind of want to be able to pull in other resources in an easy fashion. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a one-to-one of just like what's in the canvas, but also some other available resources that are relevant to the work that you're doing. Yeah.
I'm thinking like about what you were saying in terms of like multiple desktops, and I think it's kind of like one of the good metaphors there. Like you have multiple desktops, you can have shortcuts to your files and applications and notes on those desktops, right? And you might have one shortcut on multiple desktops, which is pointing to one specific file as well, just for the handiness of the navigation. So I think that metaphor like really works, and like the portals are kind of akin to your windows, right? You are opening multiple windows on different desktops, and those windows might also lead to the same application. But you are doing that in a different context, per the given desktop, which kind of like breaks that super hard connection of like what desktop contains is actually belongs to the desktop versus being like a reference that we're just calling out within the contextual space.
I imagine that like a outliner, like Dynalist or Omni outliner, and maybe to not be competitive from the visual, maybe you limit the outliner to 2 hierarchical levels, and so if they want the more depth of their content, then they have to move to the visual space.
Yeah, maybe. And one of the concepts that we were exploring is having like a switcher between your topics and the outline of the given space you're in. So in this case, we can keep, one sidebar, like left or right sidebar, which housing that type of content. But also you can switch between, whether you want to see your pinned topics or focus on the structure of the current space. Very early explorations, still trying to figure out whether there is value in this and what is the best interface for it. But we kind of thinking in the same vein, because the need, to have like a structured, maybe like list view of everything which goes into your space becomes more and more apparent. It helps with navigation, it helps with the context.
I think that Malcolm, your instinct for a list view for a couple of different reasons makes a lot of sense, and it could definitely give us a sort of easy, simplified interface for mobile. I think I'm understanding your point on that. That kind of view is useful for multiple different purposes. One of them being making a high quality mobile experience, but the other being just orienting around the contents without having to pan around. So it's a little bit complex, because I think some of that is friction about panning around the space and navigating that way. And so how do we strike a good balance between reducing the friction, thereby reducing your desire for a list-based component, versus the innate value that's actually there in a list-based format, and we've got to strike a really good balance there. That's the thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like if I were to pull the two key desires here, it's one, navigating an Edvo space a lot easier, and two, being able to bring in different, like, related information into a space a lot easier.
So is that like
you may be able to solve those two things with the same kind of feature, but yeah, I think this is a worthy exploration.
And one final question, and thank you for your patience as we kind of probe this a little bit. There's one thing that seemed really interesting in particular that you mentioned, which is it sounded like you were talking about things that were attached to the space but not in it. Am I?
Yeah, so you could kind of think of it as like things that are pinned to a specific space, like not just like a global pin, but like a local pin. So I don't know if you guys have used like Arc browser. It's like browser company in New York. Yeah, so they I want to say that they're like one of the pioneers of like bringing activity-based computing to the web browser, where it's like you have a dedicated space for particular activity, and in that space you have an arrangement of windows, so an arrangement of the work that you're doing, and then you also have a dedicated storage, or like in the context of a browser, you have like a dedicated bookmark folder, right? And in that bookmark folder, you have related items and resources that you don't necessarily have open, but you might need for later. And so, yeah, I guess in the context of Edvo, I'm still trying to figure out how like that works. I do think that another way that I'm thinking about like pulling in resources, and this is this intuition comes from using a completely different application. I don't know if you guys have heard of Plexus, but it's kind of like a shared notes application where it's like right now they're working through like this metaphor of a walk where you have basically a sequence of thoughts. Like you'll write out a note, and it's not even a complete like note or anything. It's just like a thought. And as you write your thought, underneath you'll see like a horizontal list view of other people's like notes that are related to what you're like writing about. And then you can select one of those and then add that as a sequence of like to your sequence of thoughts. So the idea is that each of those like little thought elements is like a step within your walk, and you keep adding steps into your walk, and it's like you're interweaving your own thoughts with other people's thoughts. It's absolutely like bizarre, but it's also such a unique and beautiful kind of experience where you're pulling in other people's ideas into your own workflow. But I think that what I want from my interaction with the canvas is to like add like an element or a note, and as I'm like typing that note on the sidebar, have like kind of other related things. So it's kind of like a search where it's like as you're typing out a note, you pull in based on some type of I don't know, machine learning or AI algorithm, other notes or things that you captured that are related to like what you're putting into the canvas at the moment. So that's another kind of like weird idea that I'm kind of throwing out there, but that's another use case that I see for the sidebar, where it's not just a list of like what's currently in the canvas, but pulling in stuff that is related.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Where my mind goes to is in a similar fashion to how tags are a sort of membership relation, that maybe there's an additional kind of relation that's not membership, but friendship or some other kind of relation to the side, where the thing that this relationship is not present, whatever presence means, present in the canvas, but is a sort of adjacent sort of thing. Does that make any sense? Similar to how like if you create two note cards and you link and you get them close to each other, they get the little blobby, maybe that kind of thing for spaces somehow.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of like being able, so I think of it in the context of like me having a bunch of notes or maybe a bunch of like annotations, like highlights of web content or whatever, and then just like being able to resurface and use those and like make sense of that stuff, and like add it to your canvas so that you kind of have, I don't know, like a more bottom-up process of like organizing that stuff. And so yeah, that's the key like intuition and motivation there.
I love how you're thinking about it.
A little bit like unlinked mentions in Obsidian.
Yeah, so you're typing a note, you're adding like, I don't know, hashtag or something. You're typing the name of the other note. That note is not necessarily like appears in the space, but now it's referenced, and we should have a place to see like all the reference material.
Lozenges.
So follow through.
Exactly.
Just how you can add, and I know we haven't talked much about this, but you can use the @ symbol while you're typing in an outline. I don't know if you're able to demo that, Dar, but how you can do lozenges inside of text. Maybe it's like a similar sort of thing where it's a lozenge for the space, but off to the side or something like that.
Yep.
Maybe a similar sort of concept, but fascinating to follow up on that. So definitely thank you for the thoughtful perspective on that. We'll follow up.
Yeah, sounds good. I guess I have some more like practical feedback as well, or some more like immediate feedback. I would also just like to be able to, like as I said, be able to more easily like capture things either within the web pages within Edvo, or just like while I'm browsing, being able to add stuff to a space that's like not the full web page, just like a snippet of text, right? And I wasn't sure if you guys were thinking about that both from the side of the extension or like when you're interacting with the iframe, if I can just like select a text and then just pull it into that canvas.
Yeah, so it's like a web clipper, but for Edvo, right?
So we have that kind of functionality, but I think the question is, how does it get presented after you've snipped it? And the way that we're currently doing it feels like it's a little different than what you're craving. You probably want to pull that in isolation and then have the option to show the context. Is that correct? Pull like you
no, I don't want the full like web page. Yeah, I just want the snippet of text, maybe a reference or link to like the actual web page.
Yeah.
So you want to make a highlight, and then you want to tag that highlight itself to some space. Is that a reasonable way of thinking about it?
Yeah, I guess I don't fully follow your concepts of tags, because you're tagging stuff with topics, right? You're tagging stuff with entire like spaces. So yeah, when I think of tags, I just think of like, I don't know, just a like a string of text, a label, right? Rather than but yes, what I want is to be able to take a snippet of text, and to just drag it into a space, right? So I have the web page open. I just want to highlight, drag it into that space, and then
this is good.
Start arranging kind of like just information scraps and doing stuff there.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And by the way, when we say tag, it's tag in quotes because it's really a topic. It's a topic relation lozenge.
Yeah, no, I think
people
I got
don't
that.
understand.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that it's a little bit different than how I think about tags. But yeah, we're on the same page.
We're open to fine tuning that nomenclature. By the way, it could be that it's just a relation or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
Well, it's good to know that you guys are thinking about that.
Very
That's
much.
awesome.
It's graph. This is all like I don't know how much we've talked about this, but it's shared real-time shared collaborative graph forward. Everything else is just UI metaphor, and we're trying to feel out the best formulation of that.
Yeah.
Guys, I need to jump out. So thank you for today.
Thanks, Andy.
See you later.
Hi, Andy.
Bye-bye.
I'm fading, so
Thanks,
I'm going to
everyone.
follow Andy out the door.
All right.
Thanks, Alessandra.
Bye-bye.
I think we are like up on our time. This was super, super great. I will post the recording after. I think there's a lot of different threads that we can dive deeper into based off of this conversation. So we'll prompt those in the Discord. But yeah, thanks, y'all.
Yeah,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey guys.
Have a great day.
Bye now.
Bye.